Soundstripe. Soundstripe.
Welcome in, everybody, to Lock and Live College Football Week 5 with Uncle Phil and Smooth Andy. Thanks again for joining us, Smooth Andy, Uncle Phil. How are you guys doing this morning?
Fantastic, man. It is college football. It's Week 5, and we only get 15 college football Saturdays, where everybody's playing. Obviously, playoffs this year changed things. Bowl games, it used to be meaningless. Still kind of meaningless, but the playoffs this year add a whole new dimension. But regular season where you get 15 full weeks of action. This is number 5 in the books. We've got 10 left. So, man, enjoying every minute of it. Smooth Andy, what do you think about today?
Maybe a little better than the last few weeks in terms of the quality of the games, but it's still, aside from, Georgia, Alabama, I think there are only like 2 or 3 ranked versus ranked games, and I'm getting a little tired of that. Conference play should turn that around. The cupcakes are starting to fade back into their own conferences, so I think we got good days ahead, but we're not quite there yet. Still a little bit underwhelmed by this card.
Yeah, look, Ohio State's a great example, right? First time it's Week 5. It's first time this entire year they played a Power 4 team today. So it's and I can't say they've been all that impressive in the 4 weeks that they played. So be interesting to see how it goes.
Awesome. Before we jump in and you guys lock in live, how are you guys feeling about today as far as like a confidence level? I know we kind of have talked about, like last week, for example, Uncle Phil, you said, I'm going to crush NFL, and you did. So did you, Smooth Andy. Where are you at with this card?
How do you feel about it, Smooth? What's your confidence level?
It's okay.
1 to 10. Where are you? Are you at a 5?
What's that?
1 to 10. Scale 1 to 10. 10 being the highest.
5. Yeah. I've been underwhelmed by my results so far this year in college. I think I'm basically at 500, but with the juice a little bit below. So my metrics aren't hitting too much, but that's not unusual with all the cupcake games and all the just meaningless, playing Austin P and all that kind of stuff. Usually it starts off like that. The data gets better as we get further along. The point spreads get a little sharper, and then I look for discrepancies there. I'm not quite there yet, but like I said, I just think once all these conference games start, and they're just starting to really hit now, I think in the coming weeks, it's just going to get better and better.
Yep, absolutely. I'm probably a little higher than that. I didn't like last week's college games at all. So I did some live betting to make up for that. Ended up going 8-4 total, including live betting. 4-3 in the notebook. I only had 7 games last week in the notebook. I've got 8 this week. I had a big board this morning. It was kind of hard to narrow it down. I think I had about 15 teams that I really liked, and just trying to use some caution because I've got a good record right now in college football. I'm over 60%, and I want to keep it that way. So yeah, I've got 8 games I really like, and I'm ready for this week.
Awesome. And last question before we lock in live, Uncle Phil, you mentioned live betting. Is that something that we should expect to see some more from you of going forward? Obviously, everyone was pretty happy with the live bets for college last weekend. So thought I'd just throw it out there and ask.
Yeah, man. I think live betting is a lot of fun, especially when you start getting, you have some value on these teams, especially early right now. Last Saturday, Smooth Andy and I jumped on Florida and Army, and those just, you could just tell that from the very jump that those teams were going. And right now in college football is a great time to live bet because the lines are still close. The odds makers still hadn't figured it out, neither had the public. And so when you see a game that you're not playing, and you see a team jump on another team, and you see something definitive about that game that is certainly going to continue on during the game, then it's a great time to live bet because chances are that the gap between what the spread initially was and what it might end up being is going to be a lot different. So, I know Smooth Andy and I regretted that we didn't sit there and watch Clemson just roll up NC State last week, and we almost pulled the trigger about a half dozen times on the live bet and wish we had at least 4 of those times. So anyway, yeah, it's I think you can probably expect to see that again today.
All right. Love it. Thought I'd ask.
Yep.
Well, let's get to it. Where are we heading first, Uncle Phil?
Yeah, we're going to the Plains of Auburn today, and we're watching OU take on Auburn. Look, I don't think Auburn's a great football team. I think OU is a better football team, but OU's really banged up physically, especially on the offensive side of the ball. I really like their quarterback. I think he adds a lot of juice. I think OU's probably going to win that game, but the group that I trust the most on the field is OU's defense. I think OU's defense is fantastic. I mean, obviously we're great against Tennessee, but a lot of people aren't going to be great against Tennessee. So what I like in that game is give me the under 44.5. I think that game stays close. I feel like it's kind of maybe a 20-10, 20-13 type game. And I like that a lot. The next place we're going to Death Valley, and no, not that one, the other one. And we're going to watch Stanford take on Clemson. And look, Stanford, due to Hurricane Helene, they couldn't even come in till yesterday morning. A lot of people still think Clemson. They think of Clemson, they're like, oh, they're not that good or something because they played Georgia the very first game. But you may or may not know, or if you haven't followed Clemson that much, Clemson's got some absolute dudes on the lines. And I'm mad that I didn't take them last week, and I won't be mad at myself this week because I'm taking them. I think this is a rude welcoming to the ACC for Stanford this week. I think Clemson takes care of business, kind of a West Coast, East Coast game, and not an early start. It's an evening game, but I'm not sure that whether it's morning or evening, it makes any difference for Stanford because I think Clemson has this one well under control and probably has this point spread covered at halftime.
Love it. Hopefully those both go 2-0 and maybe some live bets with it, and going to tomorrow looking to smash the bookie. Smooth Andy, how about you? Where are you heading this week?
Well, I've got 3 teams that I don't think I've bet all year. So these are kind of unusual for me, but they popped up for multiple reasons, not least of which is that they're being overwhelmed by bets on the other team. And I love being on teams like that. One team is Minnesota, and I've actually seen some people on Twitter, some guys who run sports books, saying that that's a big decision for them if they can win Minnesota against Michigan. It'll break up a ton of parlays and teasers and all kinds of stuff that they want to break up. That one of them said that would be if they won Minnesota, they'd be good for the day, basically. So I'm on Minnesota, and then the other two are going to be similar. Arizona against Utah popped up for me. Utah's getting pounded by everybody, and Arizona popped up. And I know almost nothing about Arizona except that I think I want to say that I think I saw them play UCLA or something earlier this year, or something like that. No, it wasn't UCLA. Maybe it was. I don't know. Don't know much about them, but this is just a numbers play for me. I don't need to know whether their offensive line is going to be able to handle Utah's defensive line or any of that kind of stuff. This just sort of pops up as a numbers play. And the final one is Michigan State. They're playing Ohio State today. I like this one. Uncle Phil mentioned earlier, I think Ohio State, that they played just a bunch of cupcakes, right? They played no FBS teams thus far this year. So we don't really know who Ohio State is, but I think they're going to be living on reputation today against Michigan State. Michigan State is undefeated. I don't think they've had any really impressive wins either, but this is a pretty big rivalry. You throw Michigan State, Michigan, Ohio State, and Penn State into a mixing bowl, and whichever two end up playing each other, it's going to be a big game for both of them. So I expect Michigan State to bring their A game. We'll see if they're able to hang in there with Ohio State. So that's my third one. So all three: Minnesota, Michigan State, and Arizona.
Sweet. Looking forward to the rest of your plays on your Twitter account at SmoothAndy5 as well. Let's get to the questions. What do you say, guys?
Let's get after it.
All right. We got first on the line, we got Dante. Remember Dante from the old format of the show. Good to see him. He's leaning Auburn team total under 22.5. Do you like that, Uncle Phil?
Man, I love that. I mean, like I said earlier, I think that I really trust OU's defense. Auburn can't figure out who they want at quarterback, where it's Peyton Thorne or the freshman Hill. And like I said, I think OU's defense is fantastic, and I think a team who's kind of trying to figure out who they are offensively, and Auburn, I think that's I don't see the injuries on the defensive side of the ball for OU, and I think OU holds them well under that.
Hey, thanks for the question, Dante. Smooth Andy, any thoughts on that game?
Not really. Totals for college are not a big thing for me. I don't really have I don't have any metrics really for totals. I might every now and then throw a flyer out there if I think something like that, but I haven't really seen I haven't seen Auburn play this year. I've seen Oklahoma a little, but not much, but I'll trust Uncle Phil on this one.
Good stuff. Next on the line, we're going to Nicholas McCoy. He says, is Colorado plus 14 a good pick?
Smooth Andy, you have any thoughts on that game?
I think that one showed up on my radar just a little bit.
I'm surprised it didn't. Yeah, I would be surprised if it didn't.
Yeah, it did. I'm trying to find it now where it is. I know that I think what it was is that we had I track multiple books and try to see who's getting all the the bets and the money and all that. And we have, Colorado UCF showed up. MGM has Colorado getting 60% of the bets, but Don Best has them at 26%. So it's conflicting. I want to see all the books, all the data I have be across the board heavily on one side, not the other. So that it showed up for a minute, and then Don Best, the number came down and it just disappeared off my slate. So I find it interesting though that Colorado's getting, at least in one side of this, more money. I thought people had gotten off the bandwagon last week. Didn't you think that? I mean, it just felt like everybody was always betting Dion, and then last week suddenly they weren't.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. Look, but soon as Colorado wins a game, especially last week after that dramatic finish and everything, the public just roars back in on Colorado every single time. I mean, I think that. Look, my bias is to bet against Colorado every chance I get. I just don't think they're a very good football team. The fact is, I just haven't seen UCF enough to know who they are. I know UCF averages about a little over 200 yards a game passing. I know they average a little over 300 yards a game rushing. I think that's a problem. I think that, especially because Colorado plays a lot of man defense because they want to show off Travis Hunter's ability. and skills. But when they have all those players running man, there's nobody left. And of course, UCF's got KJ Jefferson, and he's running the ball. So I expect him to have a big day. And so, yeah. So I really do. I think that they're going to run all over them, and I wouldn't touch Colorado with a 20-foot pole today. I think UCF is probably the play just because. But again, I stayed off of it just because my natural bias is to bet against Colorado, just because I think the public loves Colorado. Deion's as you and I know, a perpetual big story every week. Even when it's a bye week, you're going to see an interview with Deion. You're just going to see it. He's on the Aflac commercials. You can't run from Deion. He's constantly there pushing the public eye. So for me, it'd be UCF or nothing, but I just don't know UCF enough. I mean, I know enough statistically, I know scheme-wise what they're doing, but as far as their team, I know Colorado is just really weak, especially on the interior, the defensive tackles. So right up the gut is where they're going to be able to run. And if they're playing man against UCF, then KJ Jefferson's just going to run right through the middle, and he's going to do that all game long. So, like I said, my bias is toward UCF for those reasons, but it didn't make my radar for the reasons I mentioned.
Yeah, great question. Thanks, Nicholas. Well, there's a bunch of questions about this game. It's the big game. I don't know if you'll be able to give them much, Uncle Phil, because I know it's in the notebook, but Alabama, Georgia.
Yeah, I'm all over this game on the total and on the side. I'll refrain. Just should be a heck of a good game. I mean, this is a game that really never disappoints. I mean, this is a game that typically lives up to the billing every single time. We'll see like Caleb DeWar does today versus Saban. Obviously Georgia has been struggling trying to get their offense figured out. They've had an injury at the offensive line, that their number one guard out for a little bit, but they've had a couple weeks. Both teams had buys coming into this week to get healthy and prepare. It's about the only thing I feel like the NCAA has done right as far as scheduling, get both teams healthy so we can at least have one good game, big game this week. Andy that was already talking about how we just had, it's like, hey, maybe next week will be a better week. And we just keep from a scheduling standpoint, this is just a little soapbox thing, but the NCAA, until they get a scheduling czar that they're actually scheduling this and putting good games every week, then this is just one more instance of the NCAA's. You have this. I don't know how many billion-dollar business this is for the NCAA, but you're just letting a bunch of clowns run it, and you're just like, what are you doing? You're running this like a lemonade stand instead of that. But anyway, needless to say, this should be a great game. Shouldn't disappoint. I'm excited about it. Couldn't be more pumped about watching this game. Great way to end the night. Felt like we got OU Tennessee last week. We've got Georgia Alabama tonight. Should be fantastic game. Smooth Andy, what are your thoughts?
This one did not show up on my radar, which is not really that surprising because it's a very sort of evenly bet game. I mean, the number's been, I think it might have been at 3 when it opened, but it's been back to 0 and up on the other side, and it's just bounced around in that field goal or less on each side of 0. Games like that aren't going to show up on my radar typically, unless there's so much money that the line move is dictated by just an overwhelming majority on one side. So I'm not surprised I'm not going to get that. It wouldn't have shocked me if I'd seen a bunch of Georgia fans pile on because DeBoer is a little bit unproven at this point, right? You think, oh, there's going to be a big drop off. What's going to happen? But that didn't happen. So it didn't show up. I'm just going to be able to, not have to sweat through it. I'll just get to sit down and enjoy it as a neutral and have fun. But good luck on anybody who is betting that game. Good luck to you.
The sweat's what makes it good, though. That's why we keep coming back.
It does, but it's also nice to be able to just be a fan and not.
Hey, man, I like when it's over at halftime when I've got to wait.
Exactly. The rocking chair. Yeah.
No doubt, man.
Anyways, let's keep it rolling with the questions. We got Will Albright from Twitter. He says, thoughts on Kansas State +5.
Smooth, did that make your
Yeah, I got it's not going to make my card, but I keep track of how many little indicators I get for everything. Oklahoma State had 2 indicators and Kansas State had 1, so it came out to 1, and I just was like, I'm not going to bet. I don't bet it if it's just leaning one way a little bit. That's a lean to Oklahoma State,
Yep.
but it's not for me.
Yep.
It's not bettable. So that's where I am on it.
Yeah, it definitely made my big board. I trimmed it. I'm going to regret it, I think, because I had Kansas State. I like Kansas State in this game. It did make my big board of about, I think I had initially, like, looking at it now, probably about 22 games that I really liked. And it made that. Then it made my second cut down to about 15. But it did make my final cut down to 8. But I like Kansas State today. I really do. I just
Did they
ever
get
since
whipped
Arkansas-
last week? Didn't they get whipped by somebody last week, or was it 2 weeks ago?
It was last week. It was against BYU, I believe. But they
That's right. Okay, that's why it showed up.
But they got beat last week because they gave up some, like, a special teams return, like 14 points that they didn't really deserve. So the game was a lot closer than it appeared. But I'm not a believer in Oklahoma State. I think they're one of the overrated teams. So I like Kansas State here.
Yeah, I even though my metrics say lean Oklahoma State, I think I like the Kansas State play better just because they got beat last week, and they got beat by a pretty big number, and it wasn't reflective of the game, as you just said. So people are going to be down on K-State. That means they're going to want to pile on Oklahoma State, and I think it's a good spot for Kansas State for that reason. So I like that rationale. Yeah.
Yep.
Sweet. Let's do a few more. We got Andrew. Andrew, good to see you, man. He's asking about 2 games here. Indiana -7. Any thoughts on that?
Also made my big board. I end up crossing it off, but I was Indiana +7. I like them versus Maryland. Indiana's won their first 3 games or 4 games by an average of 24 points. They are just crushing people. Every time I bet on Maryland, their coach just looks like he's confused. And I'm like, why did I bet on Maryland again? So it would be Indiana for nothing or nothing for me today. I like that. Again, it made my big board 22 down to, it even made my 15 that I really liked a lot. But I called it at the end. And I think it was just, whenever I think there's a bias, and I'm just always mad at Maryland because every time I bet on them, it just screw me. And so whenever I feel that there's just an internal bias, I cut it just because of that, and I did in this case. So, but I do like Indiana. Andrew, good to hear from you, and good luck, man.
By the way, I should butt in real quick on this. I have Maryland +7 today.
Do you?
They just it's like a two dog game for me.
Okay.
And so they just popped up. I do like Maryland as a dog, and I like them. I think it seems like I feel like I take them every year against Ohio State. Like they're getting 20-something points, and they always just kind of hang in there. And they generally have a good offense because Loxley's an offensive coach, and so they sling it around. They had Taluia Tagovailoa. I think he graduated and left, right? But I don't know who the new guy is. But I've got them on my card. I do like Indiana a lot. I think Indiana's on people's radar, so I kind of like being against them this week. Their coach is great. He's the guy we saw. Remember last week we were talking about him. He's the guy who used to coach at James Madison, Kurt Signetti. That's who Indiana hired.
Yeah,
and he's one of those really good hires because you're hiring somebody from a small school who just knows how to coach football. He's not a big name. He's not a big recruiting name, but he knows how to make people block and tackle. And I really think the future is pretty bright for Indiana until they start playing so well that then somebody bigger comes along and poaches him. But we'll see.
Yep.
But today I'm going to be on Maryland.
Yeah, good for you, man. Well, good luck. I'm glad that I don't have to look at that Maryland coach's face.
I know.
I just depend on him for my supper tonight. So I'm gonna. Good luck to you, man.
Yeah. It's just a little flyer. We'll see. It'll be fun.
Andrew actually had another good question about UNLV -2. I know after the kind of the fiasco earlier in the week, that's kind of an interesting game. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, interesting. I think most people's gut is to run to the other side of the boat to Fresno State because of that. Smooth Andy, what are your thoughts?
Earlier in the week, I think UNLV popped up on my radar as a possible bet. I knew about the situation with the quarterback and I think the backup running back leaving.
Yep.
That would have probably stayed my hand by itself. But then today, when I checked all the numbers and reran everything, it went to no indicators on either side. So I'm sitting this one out, and I'm happy to because of all the, you don't know how UNLV's players are going to react to the fact that their quarterback's gone and all this stuff going on. I can't predict that, and I'm happy not to be in a numbers play on it, hoping that the locker room hasn't given up or something. So.
Yeah, no, look, I mean, he was a good quarterback, transferred in from Holy Cross, but again, his completion percentage for college was horrendous. It was only 43%. So the backup quarterback is not going to be. It shouldn't be really a step down for them to go to backup quarterback. So my natural inclination would be go to UNLV, but I hadn't seen the guy play. It made my biggest board of 22. It didn't make my 15, but it's kind of where I was leaning for the exact same reason. But that's why I like it. I'm interested, but only as much as kind of a peripheral interest on that.
Yeah, I agree. I think if I had a gun to my head, I'd take UNLV just because I think that there's this theory I have that people they hear a piece of news about college football or pro football or whatever, and I think we all tend to think, oh, well, I'm the only one who knows about that, right? Yeah. Like the story about UNLV's quarterback quitting the team and going redshirting the rest of the year. You hear that and you think, well, that's news that I know, and most people haven't seen it yet. And then you think maybe I'll go bet it. The problem is everybody hears it eventually, and they think they're the only ones who heard about it, and they're going to go bet against UNLV without knowing anything else about the game. And it's usually people who make bets like that I like to be on the other side of. So I would have been on UNLV today. Yep.
That's right.
Alrighty, let's do one more. A lot of people are asking for your opinion on the Arkansas A&M game.
Yeah, look, that one I like the side and I like the total in that game, and they're both in my notebook. So I can't really I'm kind of forbidden to talk about it. But look, man, it should be a good game. Just know that when it says Arkansas at A&M on the book, this is actually a neutral site. This is at Jerry's World at AT&T Stadium, so a neutral site. A lot of people thought Tennessee at NC State earlier this year was Tennessee playing at NC State, but it was actually at Charlotte, so it was a neutral site as well. So make sure you confirm when you're betting on things, just that they're not a true away game. So anyway, and this is the last in the series of the games they're playing at Jerry World. After that, it'll be a home and home, a true home and home, and this is a series that A&M has dominated at Jerry's World. A&M certainly has that. Certainly is a different A&M team, different Arkansas team. We'll see. I mean, it's nothing would surprise me that happens in this game. This is a game that Arkansas seems to blow every year at the very end. But we'll see what they do today. But look, I like this game. I've got my money down on it, and I'm rolling with it. Smooth Andy, does this game hit any triggers for you?
A quick geographical question for you. I'm guessing the answer is Texas A&M, but I'm going to say, which school is closer to Jerry World?
Yeah,
I can't remember where College Station is in Texas. I can't remember which city is closest to it.
It's
north of Houston.
Yep, it's down past Houston.
Okay.
So let's see.
That's probably.
What are your thoughts on the game?
I'm just going to be a fan. I have a lean on A&M, but I don't even remember what it was. But it's not. It doesn't show up on my betting card. But I really do think this is going to be a fun game for a neutral. this is what I love about conference play is games like this where nobody's ranked necessarily, or they might be, I don't even know, but they're still good games. They're good matchups. Maryland, Indiana is another good example. So I'm looking forward to watching this game. It's going to be on the rotation with me tonight, but that's about it for me. I nothing really showed up that made me want to motivate myself to put a bet on it.
Yeah, so it's considerably closer to
College Station.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's only a little under 3 hours from College Station, so it's definitely closer there. But Arkansas fans will travel that since it's in Dallas.
Yeah, I'm sure there'll be a good contingent of both. It's just sometimes if it's an extra 2-hour drive, then you might get less from one side. But yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Yep.
Alrighty, guys. Well, that was a great show. Any last thoughts before we take off?
Smooth Andy, what about you, man?
Well, I am going to go ahead and say one of my picks on Twitter today is going to be Stanford.
Really?
Yep.
Man.
Yeah, they showed up they hit 3 flags and so here I am hoping my team wins but doesn't cover. That's where I am on that game. But I know you're on the other side. But
Yeah,
what the
I
heck?
love it. I love it.
We got to
go head to
disagree.
head.
Yeah.
Look, man, always makes us better. I always love hearing the other side of things. Makes me better. You've certainly made me better throughout the years, and but I intend on kicking your ass today. So
Okay, that's fine. If Clemson wins by 50, I'm not going to be like hang myself tomorrow morning or something.
It's the emotional hedge, right?
Yeah, exactly. It'll be fine.
No doubt. No doubt. Listen, hey guys, hey, thanks for tuning in. For Matt, who hosts the show, Smooth Andy, it's been my friend for life and a damn good better. I'm Uncle Phil. Thanks, guys, for tuning in. Best of luck today. Let's have a day, and as always, guys, let's roll.
Stripe.